melt the butter, add the eggs, the salt, the yeast.
Yeah, so to start off, weights and measures. Ironically, I always joke with folks, we deal with about $500 million in the auditor's office. Actually, let's put this back in the freezer. Okay. These are very good to freeze.
Normally we don't put them in frosted. This was just because I knew it was going to be a sample.
Yeah, but it's you can freeze the bread itself very easy. It comes out just as if you baked it that morning, and then you put the frosting on after you're done freezing it. So our weights and measures program, typically when I speak with groups or I talk to different folks, we deal with about $500 million in our office. And it's funny, I always tell Jim Barquette in our office does our weights and measures. He's been doing it since 1990. He's a staple, absolutely, in the auditor's office. That typically folks will always ask questions about our weights and measures and about our dog license program, and real estate taxes, everything like that sometimes, but not as much. So it's a really important thing a lot of people see and touch, our weights and measures program. So you microwave the milk.
Yeah, get it scalded, nice and hot. You can put it on the stove versus the microwave.
That smells good. Sugar in there and butter. Okay.
Yeah.
So following the recipe.
Yeah.
And then what, you stir it around?
Then, stir it around, get it melted. Once it gets warm enough, you can add the eggs. Otherwise, obviously, we're going to have fried eggs and with our butter and sugar.
So you don't want it too hot in there, but we're melting the butter and just stirring it around. You have to have this big of a bowl?
You don't. Grandma always uses a plastic bowl, and that's really the only bowl. I only have 2 plastic ones. It seems to work better, I think, than using a stainless steel or glass. But that's what Grandma's always used.
So we've got one weights and measures staff member. He works 4 days a week in weights and measures and 1 day a week on our real estate department. And like I said, Jim's been doing it since 1990 or so. He is a true dedicated staff member to his craft. He is probably one of the top experts in the state on weights and measures. And technically, the weights and measures, what you would think of as, for example, where do you see us interact on weights and measures? It's your gas pumps, whenever you pump gas. And if you've noticed, on your grocery store scales, when you're either getting like a pound of ham, for example, or when you're checking out on the grocery store and they've got the scale there at the cash register. That's how you interact with mostly. It was actually a Department of Agriculture here in Ohio. Technically, we fall actually under their kind of supervision, their guidelines, and so it's considered a Department of Ag kind of responsibility that we are actually kind of overseeing or touching here at the local level, and then we work with them on some of the bigger scales, the bigger necessities that we can't necessarily do on our own. So it's kind of a local piece and also a state piece too. So pretty much all the butter's melted. It looks like lemonade.
Yeah, I think it's cool and warm enough to.
Okay.
You
so
can
you're
add.
There's vanilla in here and the eggs.
Yep.
Right?
So we did vanilla instead of the anise.
You beat the eggs.
Slightly beated before you put them in. And so I did. Did I slightly?
I don't think so. No,
okay, we better. Yeah, I think you're
you
right.
have to be.
I'm not sure the recipes.
I see yolks in there.
It says slightly beat, so we better. Well, I think
it's fine. No, just put them in. I'll move them around, yes. Okay. So you're gonna put those in here, okay? Let's keep stirring a little bit.
Yeah, get that stirred in there.
Okay, you can really smell the vanilla. And this would be anise too, in case you want, but you can do either.
Yeah.
And I'm stirring it around.
And then once we get that stirred in, then that's when we add the yeast that's already risen. And I guess the purpose of adding the sugar is to make sure the yeast is working and it works together and
in a separate bowl.
All together.
No, I meant in a separate bowl.
Oh, to prep it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right here. Yep.
Yeah. So you can dump the yeast with the warm water and the sugar and mix that all in.
Okay. Ooh, that looks really appetizing. Yes. And of course, yeast is a living thing, which is fascinating in and of itself.
If you want to use a spatula and get it out even better.
That's probably good.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Stir it all up.
Yep, get it all nice and mixed together. And then salt we can add in there.
Right now already? Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh. So Jim is responsible for a number of things in our office that you'll interact with him on. The number one thing, like I said, you'll see him most is the gas pumps. We have roughly 1,000 gasoline pumps here in the county.
I didn't even know.
I know. Now that's gasoline pumps, your normal gasoline stores. at the convenience mart type of thing. And what's this?
Just keep stirring. It's just,
Okay.
you add about a cup of sugar at a time, and it takes
Cup of flour.
flour. I'm sorry.
Yes. Oh no, that's.
It
I
takes
now know the difference between flour and sugar. Yes.
6 cups of flour, and then we're gonna let it rest
Wow. Okay.
for about 10 or 15 minutes, and add 2 more cups. So the recipe originally said 9 cups, but as my mom's done this for many, many, many years, she's realized we really don't need that much flour. For
It
the
still makes
recipe.
it come out good. So,
Yeah.
like I said, about 1,000 gasoline pumps or so. Now that's traditional, unleaded. That's leaded for the big trucks. That also is, for example, if any of you get propane gas at your house, or if there's at your place of work, if they have different trucks that come in and drop off either gasoline, or they drop off propane or natural gas, we actually test those too. And so something that's important to kind of note, we test the actual amount. So if you are registering up on the pay area, I'm completely blanking on what it's called, but when you're looking at how many gallons are coming through, that type of thing, we can guarantee to you that when Jim goes out, he calibrates. He does it twice per pump per type. So he'll do the 87, the 88, the 89, the leaded, the unleaded, and he'll do it twice. And he essentially has to have it within a certain amount that the scale, in terms of gallons, that it's close to. So most of the time, 99% of the time or so, there's no issues, no problems with different pumps. Occasionally calibrations get off, for example. But our kind of goal, the seal, when we put our seal, our auditor seal on the pump there, that's to say that, hey, when you're buying 5 gallons of gasoline, you are getting roughly right about 5 gallons of gasoline, plus or minus maybe a few liquid ounces, give or take. Now, when there's an issue, for example, a lot of times people ask us this: well, hey, what happens if when you're at a gas station and it underpumps half a gallon, for example? Well, Jim will test it twice, and if it still comes up bad, we put a red bag over it and say, hey, gas station people, you've got to fix this. Now, ironically, most of the time what happens is that it's actually in the customer's favor when we find an issue of that size for whatever reason. But sometimes we do find issues where they underpump, and so we'll tell the gas station this gets a little
Where's on your
wow.
grandma does it with your shoulder. Once you get it all
dough,
mixed, we'll just let it set.
I think does it look all mixed?
Yeah, make sure you don't see any dry flour in there. Flip it over. There, if you want to use a spoon, either way.
Oh, this.
Use the spoon.
Oh.
Otherwise, it gets.
That's a whisk. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to take this or? Oh. Okay. Oh, this is much better. This is what they have mixers for.
You can, I believe, use a mixer too, instead of doing it with your hand. But why?
No. Yeah. I think this is good. I think it looks all mixed in there together.
Okay. So we'll just let it rest.
We'll we'll tell the gas station folks, hey, you gotta fix it. They'll come out. They'll calibrate. Like I said, we have about 1,000 of those between the actual trucks that we'll also test to make sure they pump out the correct amount of gas. The gasoline pumps themselves for consumers or for trucks, and we have to do this once a year. So Jim goes out every day, and we'll typically stop at gas stations at least every day here in the county because there's just so many of them. Okay.
Perfect.
That's also, if you live down here, close by where my parents live in Orwell, they have something called, and I completely forget the name of it, but it's not only traditional gasoline, but it's also the the high flow diesel, for example, and liquefied gasoline, the high pressure liquefied gas that they have down here at Orwell. Jim tests those too. So all varieties, different types where consumers interact on the gasoline side, we make sure that you're getting the correct amount of gas. So where to go?
Oh,
Where are you going?
I'm sorry. So now we're gonna go let it rest.
Okay.
You
Now
can.
what's that doing?
That's the bread. See if it looks all right. It may need another
So
minute
we
or two.
put, I think maybe in a minute. So we did put some of the bread in the oven before, just to test out.
You
We'll
can
put it in
turn
first.
it around and make sure that it's.
Okay, go ahead. You have to actually put it in the oven for about 15 minutes or so. We're baking a whole bunch of batches today. Obviously with Easter coming up next week, getting ready for some of those celebrations and things. But we let it sit here. You have a towel over top of it. And how long do you let it sit for?
It's about 2 hours before it doubles in size.
Ooh. So this is about 2 hours ago. And now look at that
you
thing.
just let it raise and it doubles in size, and then you gotta punch it down.
Oh my. Okay, so how does one punch it down? What do we do?
So you
can
just
see this here?
actually, because it is still a little sticky, you want to get that spoon again.
Okay. This is after you let it rise with some towels over top for about 2 hours or so.
Yeah.
Already. So what do I do?
And then we're gonna put it out on this.
Just dump it out?
Yeah, or punch it down first. Either way, I think it's okay.
Ooh.
There you go. Deflate it.
Interesting. So it's kind of like that's the yeast working, right?
Yeah. And then.
This is a good way to get out aggression.
Oh, easy. Okay, that's good. You could scoop
Not that I have any or anything.
You could scoop it with that.
Okay, so scoop it out with this.
Yeah, and just put it on here.
You can see this makes quite a lot of dough. So it's important to note though that we test the amount. We say 5 gallons is 5 gallons. Jim will test to make sure every pump he goes to that there aren't scammers or skimmers on the actual pump itself. So when you put your credit card in, that there isn't a device there that's stealing your credit card information. We've had that here in the county before. We test every single one. But what we don't test is quality. So you may be aware that sometimes, for example, there's different tanks, and I've learned this just by going out with Jim. There's different tanks for the different quality of gasoline. The 87s and the 89s and the different types. Well, sometimes this stuff is sticky.
It is
sometimes
sticky.
the truck drivers, they put it in the wrong one. That happened at Getco in Geneva about a year ago or so, right before the pandemic. They put the wrong type of gas in the tank. And so what happened, a whole bunch of cars went to the gas station, filled up, they put the wrong gas in, maybe diesel, when it should have been unleaded. And you can imagine the craziness that happened after that. We don't test the quality. Now, something like that, there'd be no way to test it before it actually, because you're pumping it in and then pumping it right out. So sometimes the water can get into the tank, for example. I'm letting this sit here. So what do we do now?
Yeah, so now we just
this is fun to touch.
Use a little bit of flour. You don't want to use too much because then you're defeating the purpose and you're drying it out. But use a little bit of flour and then just kind of like get it back into a ball where it's not quite so sticky. So just maybe sprinkle some of the flour on it.
Sprinkle a little bit of flour. I
I'm gonna
have
take
no
this
clue what I'm doing. Okay, we're gonna sprinkle a
you're
little bit
fine.
of flour onto here.
Yeah.
So we don't test the quality. So if there is water, that is kind of something that's up for debate right now in the State House. Whether state auditors should be testing, or county auditors should be testing out the quality of the gasoline. Well, we can only say the quantity. That's a whole different kind of apparatus in terms of testing equipment and funds that we just don't have the capability for, nor actually the legislative ability right now to do. So if you do have questions or concerns over the quality of the gas, that's going to the gas company itself, to the store, and they can test that out too. Our phone number is right there on our seals on the gas pumps. Now, why is this important? Well, obviously, let's say even just a tenth of a gallon incorrect. You add that up over time, day after day after day, different consumers coming in, and that can really be quite a loss or quite a gain. And the key is that you want to make sure that you've got the right amount, right? Now, we don't just test. Jim doesn't just test gas pumps. So weights and measures, a whole bunch of different things. Like I said, at the grocery stores. So we have about 1,000 or so gas pumps. Like I said, we're gasoline type, liquid type places that Jim will go. But we also test at grocery stores. And I've been to Walmart and a couple other grocery stores with Jim before. I just keep moving this thing in a ball, and I don't know if am I doing it right?
Let me see.
No? Okay.
Well, not that you're not
no.
not that you're not doing it right, but we got to get it. I'm gonna go ahead and work with it here for a minute and see.
Okay. So this is the section where you're supposed to put it into a ball.
Well,
so you're
just
using
to
flour.
kind of get it so it's not quite so sticky, but you don't want to over flour it right now. And then we'll take this dough, and Grandma's gonna have to correct me when we're done. Let me know at this point what I'm doing wrong, because
Well, it looks right. I've seen this in the movies when they're making dough before. So it looks like they're doing it. So we just keep moving it around. Okay.
So it's not quite as sticky. And then
I see.
you might want to just.
So it almost kind of looks like pizza dough, for example. Have you ever seen pizza dough before, or even normal bread dough? So it's I see. So it's more malleable.
Yeah, really nice to work with. And then just get it into a nice long log.
So do you see that technique? That's the technique you want. And this isn't the bread itself. There's about 6 or 7 that will actually come from this bread log itself. This would be quite a big loaf if you just use just one of these. So you just keep covering with flour.
Yeah,
okay.
so I think it's good enough for right now. Then what you're gonna do, we weighed it out the other batch, so we get about 5 ounces per dough ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cut about 5 ounces worth.
And then weigh it.
And then weigh it right here. So like I said, this is not one that Jim has tested before, but Jim will actually go into grocery stores. So I'm going to cut. Ooh, this is, okay. Cut.
Yeah. And then
Let me get the.
That's.
I did like it. I'd like to put plastic on top.
just to keep it so it's.
She's a much cleaner person. Okay, this is 5.
That's good.
That's 5.2.
We don't have to be perfect.
Okay, that's 5 ounces right there.
Yeah.
So I need to cut these all into 5 ounce doughs, right?
Well, you can, or you can just do 2 of them now to show them how to
perfect.
grade it.
Yeah, that'll work. So Jim will go into grocery stores, and not only does he test the scales there, doing kind of like this. He has a little almost briefcase-like thing where he goes, and that's a lot more than 5. He goes and he'll go to every single scale at the deli, for example, and he'll put little scales on, and he'll zero things out. He'll make sure that they have the correct kind of signage there for what you're buying, and he makes sure that when you're buying a pound of meat, for example, that you're getting a pound of meat. And what's also unique kind of about the grocery store when he goes, and this is actually it's a really useful thing. He'll actually go around and do something called price checking. So when we were at Walmart, for example, well, this is sticky. So okay, so this is a 5 ounce ball again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's 2 5 ounce balls. So we'll just do those 2 now, just to show kind of the crisscrossing. So what do we do with this thing?
You can just kind of, let me see, we'll flop it up. We're just going to move it out of the way for right now so he can show you how to roll out the actual bread.
So when we're at Walmart, he actually, on all the grocery stores, Jim will walk around, and I can't remember the exact amount, maybe 15 or 20 or so items. He'll just randomly pull and mark down how much the store says a bag of bananas is, or a thing of toilet paper is, for example. He'll put the 15 items in the grocery cart, he'll go to the scanner, and then he'll scan each one and make sure that what their advertised price is, that is also the price that comes up at the scanner. And actually, when he and I were there just on a random day, they had some issues with their price scanning. So that's a perfect example of, we kind of randomly will go to different stores, and the key is just to make sure that they are doing the advertised prices and amounts that you're seeing as the consumer, which is a really helpful thing as a consumer advocate. All right, so you have 2 5 ounce, so you want to weigh it roughly out, or it's about the size of my palm. Right there, yes.
So if it gets too sticky as you're rolling it, just kind of get your fingers floured up a little bit,
Okay.
and then roll it out.
I'm going to pre-flour. Alrighty, so I'm just going to roll it out.
Yeah.
Yay.
It rolls really easy. The dough's really nice to work with.
Yeah, this is nice, malleable. And so how long do I want the...
Typically, if you're going to use a normal cookie sheet, and depending what size you want them, but we do about 20 inches it comes out to be.
Okay. Mom has a very nice cutter board thingy that has the roller, the length thing.
Measuring
And yes, thank you, measuring thing. My loss for words today is just amazing. So then you need a little more flour. So I'm gonna put this
if
back
you get
on
too much on it, then it's hard to roll. It just kind of flops.
Okay, so we got this. It's about 20 inches or so.
So you can move it over here.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be exact. It could just.
And it looks small. It looks like, oh, that's not much of a loaf of bread.
Well.
But
yeah, depending on how big you want it, it's all up to what size.
Okay. Well, and when
for.
you bake it, it obviously gets much bigger, and you'll see when we crisscross it too. So at the store, Jim will make sure, like I said, he'll price check. He'll make sure that the deli, the scales all work and they're correct. And also, a perfect example of another thing recently. So he went to a store, in the store recently, And I posted this on our Facebook page here. And like I said, feel free to type in questions if you have them as we go. But he went to the store, and what he found was when people were checking out at the cash register itself, there's a scale there, you know, and they'd use the scale there for like tomatoes or for apples, depending on what you buy that might be weighted. And they had a binder of all the different prices with, you know, the typical that you've seen at a store. Well, they had it laying on the top of the register, which actually was part of the scale.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, that's not much, but it is actually adding weight to the scale that the cash register folks weren't recognizing, weren't realizing. So you've got two small loaves here.
Yeah,
All right.
I think.
So you can see them right here?
Yeah, and I think, you know what, let's go even longer. You can
A little
roll
bit longer?
them.
Okay.
Yep,
So a little bit longer than 20 inches.
can go even longer than that.
Okay, so we may be going like 25 inches or so.
Yeah. I told you the wrong number to begin with.
Okay.
That's good. That's probably good, this
Yep,
one.
25 inches.
Yep, and then you can just cross it and you can just begin to braid.
Okay, so you're going to braid it. If you've seen the Easter breads, there's different types I've seen online. There's some that are circular, there are some that are just a loaf. How we've always made them are kind of like a crisscrossy type
Just a
type
braid.
bread. So you make like a little X.
Yep.
Here on the cutting board, and then you just, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
you
perfect.
just kind of braid them over
Perfect.
and braid them over,
And that's, yep, just like that.
but not too tight.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Not too tight.
Okay. You because then it just becomes just a normal piece of loaf, but just like that, and you can see, yeah, you can see a little bit. I'm looking. It's braided. It's got the criss over. You just put in an X and you braid them underneath. And then that's
Perfect.
kind of the
And then you
the
can
loaf.
just set it on here,
Okay.
going lengthwise. Yeah.
And how long do you let it sit before you put it in the oven?
So this will rise a good, probably hour and a half, 2 hours, I would say. Again, till you'll be able to see the difference and pretty much know when they're done. They're puffed up nicely. I should have showed you one that I put in the oven just now. But if you want to cut off some more,
I'll do another one real quick.
Yeah, do another one.
So, you know, when Jim is at the grocery store, like I said, price check. He does the scale checks as well. Now, something else neat
Not
that
too
we
much
don't roll that. Okay,
Not
don't
too
use too much flour. And we're going to see this is 5 ounces roughly. Oh, got two on. You know, some of the bigger things that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Well, you know, how do they measure those? For example, if you've ever driven, you have to. Oh, I've learned this before. You have to zero it out. Because
Good job.
Yes.
And then we're going to do grams or ounces. Or
we're gonna do ounces. Yes, I swear that my I need a little more. That my seal is good. We do know what we're doing. You know, kind of unique things. So just about a month ago or so, Jim got a call and said, "Hey, we're going to need to come out." And like I said before, we work with the Ohio Department of Agriculture. It's kind of a subsidiary of that program under the Ohio Department of Agriculture. And so they're actually the ones that will do some of the bigger scales. And Jim goes out, though, and works with them as kind of the local advocate here on the ground with them. And so one of the scales that we actually did was the highway patrol scales. Jim will go out a couple times. I can't remember if it's yearly or if it's going to be every other year or something like that. And he'll actually work with the state ODA, the state agriculture folks, and do the testing of the highway patrol scales, which is pretty cool to see. Now, in this case, they had some issues with theirs, and they had to come back, but he works with some companies that have massive scales. And we're talking too, you know, think about, as we all know, Ashtabula County has large manufacturing hubs and companies that, you know, rely on different weights and measures for, you know, their products when they get them in on the railways, for example. Well, those have to actually be tested, and we do those too. So that's a big company that will come out, and they have a little cart that's almost like a golf cart, for example, that will actually do like tons of weight, tons and tons of weight with the companies, and they'll actually work and, you know, move them on, make sure they are within a certain amount. Penny Dock, for example, up by the lake, we test those as well, making sure that if a, you know, local township or a business, for example, is buying certain amounts of stone or gravel, that their scales are accurate. And that's, we can't do those on our own, of course, but we work with some of the bigger companies, for example, and with the state and use some of their equipment. And that equipment has to be tested every year and has to be recertified and classified. And Jim does quite a bit of continuing education with the state because things are always getting updated, especially for the gas pumps and the scales.
How many scales would you say? You said there's 1,000
Well, yeah,
gas scales.
so there's about 1,000 gas pumps, but we've got, how do you
many
think? A
scales?
little bit longer?
Yeah, you can move this one out of the way and.
There's about 400 other scales that Jim
Wow.
has to do. So that takes up a lot of time if you think about it, doing all those different types of scales.
At all the different grocery stores?
All different grocery stores, the railroads, for example, all those types of scales, penny dock, like I said, the highway patrol type scales, anything where there's a commercial. We don't do, for example, the pawn shops where they measure out grams of gold or things like that. That's just too, it's too small, too granular. But we'll do pretty much everything else, commercial wise. And the key is this saves you money. It's estimated on average, it saves the average consumer about $250, $300 a year.
Wow.
Just by keeping the businesses correct and together and right, and by fixing problems before they cost you, the consumer, at the end of the day. So it's a really good program. It's something that doesn't get enough attention, I think, and Jim, like I said, does an absolutely tremendous job making sure that the scales, the different measurements here in the county are all good, right, appropriate, and they measure up. So that's Easter bread. Now, so we bake these. The recipes you can see on my personal page. Like I said, I shared it just now before we started. How long? We bake them for about 15 minutes or so.
Yep, 15, 18 minutes on 350.
And after you bake them, you can actually freeze them if you want,
Yep.
or you can actually do so Easter bread, one of the nice things about it, why you eat it after dinner with coffee, it's sweet. The anise makes it sweet, but also there's lots of sugar involved, and the frosting on it too is, so what's the frosting like?
So it's a powdered sugar with some butter and vanilla flavor. Even if you do an anise bread, you could put some vanilla flavor in the frosting, or no flavor at all, but just, it says 4 cups of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons butter, and then enough water to make the consistency. Some bread you see are really a thin frosting or icing on top, but I like it a little bit thicker, like Grandma makes it.
Yeah.
And then the key, like the Italian thing that we do, is put the sprinkles on top. Or let me show you one of these packets. But being Easter, I think
Easter colors, it's kind of bright and cheery, and the whole idea, it's kind of goes back to the idea of rising bread, of something that you share with family, and people you care about. So nice bright colors.
Non-parallels, I can't pronounce it.
Pastels?
No, what's it say?
Oh, rainbow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kind of brighter, more Eastery type colors. It really livens up a table when you bring Easter bread to a table. And as you can see, something very simple, just a very down-to-earth bread that not too many folks know about outside of kind of the Italian heritage, Italian community, but really something tasty and fun that everyone can enjoy at Easter. So that's a nutshell our weights and measures program. There's so much information with that too that I didn't even really kind of get to touch on. If you have complaints, if you got questions, just reach out to our office about it. Jim fields questions all the time about gas pumps that people think may not have been zeroed out, for example, when they first started, or other issues. Slow pumping gas is another one. But we're more than happy to walk you through. He goes out, investigates that day if there's an issue, and same thing at scales, for example, in grocery stores. You should always see our scale, and of course you remember that one of the promises that I made, for campaign-wise, that our sticker that goes on every gas pump, like I said, about 1,400 or so devices here in the county, wouldn't be my campaign colors, wouldn't be my campaign logo. So you'll see just a black and white with the Ashtabula A. Has our phone number there to call for complaints or to call for questions. That's Jim's direct line. He'll be more than happy to talk with you. We have another batch that just finished out of the oven. Like I said, you get about 6 or 7 breads just out of one, and you can see how big the breads are just from that small amount that we rolled it out just now. It really does a good job at rising. It can feed a family. You probably don't have more than 2 maybe slices or so of bread sitting after dinner. for dessert. So it can feed a family. One batch can feed a big.
It's good for breakfast,
Big
even
get
if you
together.
have a toaster that you put it in one of your
I didn't think about
toaster
that.
ovens. Yeah,
Interesting.
get it warmed up or crispy.
Huh.
I have a question. When you mentioned your campaign promise,
Mhm.
so why didn't you use the red and white?
Well, that's just a black and white saves money. It's just straight printing, that type of thing. And I don't think that taxpayers should be using your money, taxpayer money, for putting up my campaign signs all over the county. That's just every county has a little bit of a different philosophy. What's his name? Jimmy DeMora from Cuyahoga, if you remember him, the auditor that's in jail still, he would put his face on his stickers.
Oh my.
So that kind of runs the gambit. You can do whatever you'd like with them, but I just thought it should be separate. My office logo. If you go on our website, if you see anything from us, it's that black and white. It's very simple, and that's kind of how I wanted. That's what I wanted to show as our office kind of theme, our mantra. That we're straightforward to the point, but we're also recognizing the A. We're recognizing our county logo, and always spreading it out to people too. But we appreciate you spending the afternoon with us. This will be up on YouTube and information too. Feel free to reach out if you've got questions about the bread, about any of the things that we bake together, or about the auditor's office course. We're always happy to help answer those.
Happy Easter.
Yes, enjoy your Easter. As you can see, I picked my first batch of flowers this morning from my house.